Hello, I'm Mark. Welcome back to Three Ridges. So this is me trying to cure YouTube apathy. So I'm going to do 2 minutes a day, try and do that over the week. At the moment I'm just summer. It's still officially summer over here in the UK, so today it's about 10 degrees cooler than it was yesterday. The lovely blue sky's gone. It's now gone very pale and foggy. And what we are noticing as well is the autumn colours are starting early this year. I think just because of the heat. They're talking about 4 heat waves. So, and you are starting to see some of the trees going lovely yellow and orange. We don't normally get that till mid-September. So yeah, everything feels like it's a month early. But give me inspiration, because my lower layout is set in autumn, early autumn. Okay, so day one. So I've done the first version of the back wall from Marylebone, but it's just too orange. It is too cleaned up for how I want to have it as back in the sort of early 80s, late 70s. I always thought there was an exit here out onto the road, but clearly when you look there wasn't, so the vans obviously had to make their way back down the platform and drive out the arch at the end. So this is the normal colour that brickwork should be when you print it out. So not quite sure where my printer did this. I'm going to have to investigate that, see if I can come up with a similar colour. So I'll make up the same wall in the darker brown, and I'm going to think about using this one because I still like it for the back of the main London station over here, because that is supposed to be St Pancras basically inspired really. The other job today is to get more of these backboards in. Okay, so it's day 2. So I rebuilt the back wall for Marylebone. So I've done the whole wall all the way along, and whilst going back and watching some very early Boomer episodes from about 5 years ago, and he made the comment, just try stuff and fail forward, which I thought was brilliant. So I've been wrapping these, I can't remember what they're called, struts, parapets, I don't know. I just didn't like the look, they look folded. So I got to this section, I've just been cutting the paper flush and then just sticking it on one surface, so you still got the cardboard edge. And then using, I haven't got a grey at the moment, so I've been using this brown one. No idea what colour that is. To just sort of take off the white edging. And then I ended up playing around with just drawing a line down the side, and then ended up putting a few line streaks down on the brickwork. It looks okay actually, just, it's just going to be in the background anyway. Like dirt drips down, but obviously I'm going to weather up anyway at the top, because the top of the station was a lot blacker. So, but I like where it is. I'll put it up in the loft, see how it looks. Okay, so I think I've got like 10 seconds left if it's 2 minutes a day. I'm just going to be working on the backseam boards today, so won't be anything to show. Okay, so very quickly, had a good day. I've got 5 of the backboards cut and painted, so that'll get me most of the way around. Hi, so it's raining, so we're just going to wait in the woods because we've just spotted a deer. You see one every day really. But the dog, being a terrier, wants to chase it, which is why she's always on a lead. So tomorrow's Wednesday, I'm driving down to Aylesbury, so that's where my mum and my in-laws live, and my sister's over from New Zealand, so we're going to go up to London on Thursday, so we get to go up on the Chiltern line, get on at Stoke Mandeville, so that's one station up from Wendover, same style of station, and then we'll go through Amersham, Moor Park, Harrow on the Hill, and get to Marylebone or Marleybone. So I thought for this, because I'm going to be out for sort of 3 days, but I'll show some photos of Marylebone or Marleybone. So in the car I will think about the plans. What I'm going to do today, because it's raining, I'm going to spend the whole day in the loft, because I've got to spend 2 days basically in a car. It's an 8-hour journey each way. I'm going to enjoy myself today and just play trains, pot around, get the back scenes up, but have a real good long loft day. So I'll show you the outputs of that. And what I'm also starting to think about is where the buildings go. So obviously with the railway line, everything's parallel to it. That's, you know, railway architecture. So stations all run with the lines, and we tend to have our layouts with the lines running parallel to fascia boards. But then when you get to the buildings, I have sort of fallen into the trap of also putting them, you know, the street behind, parallel to the railway line, parallel to my vision. And so you end up with issues of like, well, where do roads go then? Because they just crash into the backboard. Whereas when you actually look on Google Earth down around stations, unless you're in Milton Keynes where everything's on a grid structure, very much like the Americans, so everything's squares basically, horizontals and diagonals. You go to London, everything's at every angle of the whole 360. And I was starting to plan out London very much, everything's sort of square on, and then realised that I don't need to do that, but also buildings aren't square in London, they fit in. So you will have triangular buildings tapering down to a very small area, curved streets, all that sort of stuff. So it's not a grid structure, stuff was rammed in. Factories are really odd shapes. So I'm going to go back and have a rethink about some of the buildings I was going to put in. I've got to have a few main streets, simply because I haven't, you know, got a lot of space, and it's easier to have a street, but they don't need to run sort of diagonal to the fascia, they need to run at angles. And I think that'll give me some more interesting perspectives to look down. So again, I'll also think about how I'm going to view it between, if you ever watched any of the early ones, the Luke frame. So basically I get a view in through each of the roof struts. It's about 60 centimetres, 2 foot wide, and so I'll think about how I position the buildings so that when I'm looking in, basically what can I see from there to there, and having the buildings sort of going off at an angle. Anyway, that's 5 minutes of rambling, so that's 30 seconds of some images of Marleybone. Catch you on Saturday. Okay, so a very quick update on the day. So I made up one of these deep arched all sections, see if it would fit in this. This is where the underground runs down like a trough, and this occurs quite often in London. So, and there's one as you come out of Baker Street that I remember very vividly. So, but it's too wide and too big, so I'll go for something that's narrower. However, I still like the structure, so I'm going to build another section here as it sort of passes. So it will go through a tunnel section here, which I need to build up, and then I'll have a sort of trough section before we go around the corner, with just a hint of it sort of disappearing off. So that was the purpose of that. And then very briefly, most of the day's been sorted out doing back scenes. So there's the back scene at the far end, around, and then I've got a new back scene for the back of Wendover, and it gives me a little bit of extra space. So I've got 5 centimetres, so I can put a bit more scenics behind Wendover, which I always wanted to do. So pleased about that. To get there I have to crawl all the way under the boards and down the back, as you saw in a picture, which is quite tight. The main area of the work today is in this section here. So this is where originally I had 4 lines going up and down, and then I realised it was just too much. I only needed 2, so basically, and so I've cleaned up this area here. So the back line is my East Coast line, just goes straight through, and then the West Coast line. So taking out 2 of the points, and I just got the one turnout to go over the bridge to the goods line. So basically I'll run the East Coast as a DCC line, and my West Coast line in front will be a DC line. The 2 will never meet. So I've just been testing it. So you run the trains up and down there fine, which is why I've got that temporary line in there. And then when I've got an idea for a scenic here, where I'll sort of show that the track was rearranged from the old to the new, which is obviously when they did the electrification of the line, they sorted out a lot of things like that. So put in some old ballast, and then obviously behind Cornwall Park is looking a lot cleaner with the white background. So what I did notice though when I was back there, it was quite dusty at the back, so I need to have a good clean up. Okay, so it's Saturday, so had a good trip down to London, and it's got me thinking a lot more about this side of the loft and the scenics that I want to do, and the sort of the effect I want to have on the autumn. So a lot of autumn colours as I was driving down and back, all the way across the country. So clearly the hot weather has had its impact. And also it's good to get to Marylebone and see the sort of refreshed station, and there's a few of the structures there that I sort of wanted to check out, just to make sure how I'm sort of building my dilapidated Marylebone of the late 70s, early 80s. So I'm going to just carry on working on these backboards for the time being, for the weekend, and a few other bits and pieces. But anyway, I'll finish with some running shots down at Marylebone. And if you follow, thank you very much. And for those who offered a few comments of support after the last one, thanks as well. I did appreciate it. Anyway, hopefully catch you in a week's time. Cheers for now.